you've said tax-free retirement accounts will be capped at $1.6 million. Now, what if your investments go bad and that value goes down and your income goes down with it, obviously? Can you top it up?
No, I mean, you can only put in $1.6 million, which, of course, but which is an indexed amount. So if on 1 July 2017, when this measure comes into effect, you can put in $1.6 million into an income tax-free retirement income account. And importantly, that threshold will be indexed. And also you can keep your earnings on that $1.6 million inside that tax-free retirement income account. If you compare that with Labor's policy, which imposes a 15% tax on earnings of $75,000 per annum, that amount is not indexed. I mean, DICE say on their own policy, in their own policy document, that it applies to super balances of $1.5 million. That assumes a return of 5%. And now, in some years the return will be higher, which means that the super balances that are impacted are going to be lower. That means that obviously our policy is more generous than Labor's. One, because we've got indexation of the threshold, and two, because you are able to generate your earnings, and three, because you can keep your earnings in the tax-free retirement income account, and finally, you don't have the uncertainty which comes.
Yeah, but shouldn't I be a bit scared, Matthias? Like, I've put in my 1.6 million. Unfortunately, share market goes down. I made a dud investment. It's not worth it. It's worth 1 million. And obviously the income I can draw off it is much less. Why are you forbidding people like me, because I'm a dud investor, to top it up to 1.6?
Well, the issue that you raise is a very important one, and that is that people, once they are in their retirement phase, face a series of financial risks. They face market risk, they face obviously inflation risk, they face what actuaries describe as longevity risk, which is the risk that you will live longer than your money will last. And historically in Australia, we haven't had many very good financial products. We haven't had many innovative financial products in our market to help people in the retirement phase manage those financial risks. What we've done in this budget, and that is not something that's been talked about very much, is we've extended the tax-free status, the tax exemption on earnings, beyond what was available to people in retirement before, and we've extended that to so-called deferred lifetime annuity products. I mean, what I would put to you is that when you're in the retirement phase and you've got $1.6 million that you've saved throughout your life, you shouldn't be investing it, in a generic sense speaking, in highly volatile, investments that are likely to drop, from 1.6 million to $1 million. I mean, obviously, if you're in the retirement phase and you need to rely on...
Some people will do that, Matthias.
Well, and that is...
Some people will do that, and I just wonder why they can't top it up.
Well, because, we've drawn a line in the sand. There's 1% of Australians have got $1.6 million in their super as we speak today. That is obviously very much at the high end. I mean, the alternative is to essentially exclude an increasing amount of income generated in Australia on the back of, these very high savings from the income tax system, which means that the remainder of the community has to pay higher taxes to make up the difference, and that is not structurally sustainable. That is why we had to
I've got why you don't. I've got why you think, and the Productivity Commission has warned about that as well, and I accept that. I was just wondering, people make decisions.
I don't think you
find their superannuation. Can I move on though?
I'm not sure that you
the transition
properly
to retirement
heard the benefit though. Okay.
Yeah. The transition to retirement scheme. Now, this is for people aged between 55 and 65, or who use their super to top up their earnings while they're tapering down, allegedly, their working hours. Now, those super earnings will now be taxed at 15% as well. How many people will this affect?
Well, the advice that we've got is that it will affect about 115,000 people, and 80,000 of them in self-managed super funds. The Productivity Commission has looked at this quite closely, and the advice of the Productivity Commission is that just 5% of Australians in that age bracket access transition to retirement income streams. The original intent of this particular approach was to encourage people to start reducing their working hours as they approach retirement, and to top up their work salary, their working wage, with an income stream out of their super, which then was the earnings on assets supporting that income stream were tax-free. But what has been happening increasingly is that people continue to work full-time, put a large chunk of money tax-effectively into super by way of contributions in the accumulation phase, and then took an income stream out of super at the other end with the earnings, obviously completely tax-free. And so the change that we've made here, which is a fair and reasonable change, it's an integrity measure, and that is to make the tax treatment of earnings in the accumulation phase consistent across the board. Everybody else that is accumulating superannuation savings pays 15% tax on earnings during the accumulation phase, and what we've said is that moving forward from the 1st of July 2017, that will also apply in the same way to people who are in the transition to retirement phase. Now, bearing in mind,
so people were
these are people who are still working, most of them full time. They are able to reduce their tax effectively on their working salary by putting money in tax effectively into superannuation by way of contributions and then taking income streams out the other end. Yeah.